Hello everyone, this is a podcast by Samuel R. Blakeledge. Welcome to episode 2 of CNR, a weekly horror fiction reading created by me and hosted on YouTube. As well, this podcast will soon be released on other streaming platforms in the coming future. Thank you to everyone who supported last week's episode. It was a big surprise to see the support that it received. Once again, if you like this kind of content, please check out my website linked below and support this channel as much as you can. I also host another YouTube channel where I create my own music for films and games, which also has a link to my main website where you can watch short films and listen to other projects that I have worked on. I have also planned something very special for next week's episode, so make sure to come back and tune in next week, on Saturday at 6 PM. Lastly, I would like to say, sit back and relax and welcome to Cestrum Nocturnum Radio. Episode 2, Sunflower. Hello, this is Peter Bridgeford, and welcome to Cestrum Nocturnum Radio, a private broadcast for the employees of the Enigmatic Investigation Bureau. This is loop number 22, statement given by Miss Delilah Smith on the 17th of November 2019, age 20 years old. Recording done by Peter Bridgeford, archivist and broadcaster for the EIB, employee number 558-269. Beginning loop. My name is Delilah Smith, and I was a student at the University of Manchester. At 20 years old, I decided to leave my studies and move back home. I also submitted this statement out of fear and a great sense of desperation because what I saw or what I believed to have seen was definitely not my sister. I wasn't drunk like every other student that night, to which the date I cannot remember. I must have blocked it out of my mind for whatever reason. I cannot recall. The only thing I could recall was the details of the incident. However, it is worth noting that I was on antibiotics at the time for a rather nasty chest infection, but I still wanted to have fun. So I stayed out on Canal Street with my friends from the university and did what every other student does. Partied hard and played hard, but like the majority of my life, I felt so guilty. I felt guilty for being allowed to experience the good things that it has to offer. There was an air that night, and it had a cloud of judgment hanging over it. As I enjoyed myself in the twilight of the Manchester town, I could feel it clawing its way over me, baying me into depression again. So I decided to leave my friends and return to my somewhat abysmal flat in the northern quarter. Old and decrepit, it was the perfect student accommodation. Being in my second year, however, it was an official upgrade to my first year cardboard box. The moon was high and the sky was clear in contrast to the gloomy orange overhang as I walked down Canal Street towards Piccadilly Gardens, which was roughly a 5 to 10 minute walk. There are many alleyways, side streets and pathways in the tightly confined city, so it was very easy to get lost in some giant concrete maze that was Manchester. Luckily, I knew where I was going and decided to head towards the Morrisons, directly across the way from the gardens before waiting at the nearby overground station for a late-night tram. Before I go any further, it is also to note that being a female and walking alone in Manchester is somewhat safe depending on where you are. However, none of my student friends wanted to leave early, as it was only 11:05 when I reached the glass doors of Morrisons. Canal Street is, and still is, somewhat safe, so I felt calm and happy to walk home alone. After purchasing a small meal deal on a cold bottle of Coke Zero, I decided to head to the tram stop and begin eating as I hadn't consumed something well over 6 hours ago, which from what I can remember I had taken my antibiotics then and felt much better as it was clearing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone out at all. I reached the tram stop and that is when the incident happened. The very reason I left Manchester to return to Surrey, where my family is and now study in London, is because of that night. Strange because what I saw, or what I thought I saw and keep seeing, was my sister. However, she had been confirmed dead over the last 10 years. Now around 2009 was when my sister passed away. She was hurried out of the back patio door in some black bag with a long obsidian zipper down the middle, and I knew at that moment I would feel ever more guilty for her. She was born 3 years after me, but she always had some air of maturity about her, despite the way she was. And that very thing set her apart from me, and set her apart from everyone else, and that was her deformities. She was born with a severe form of scoliosis, brittle bones, and without the ability to communicate due to some undiagnosed mental condition. I hated her as a child, and I think she knew it. She frightened me, and she invaded my dreams and thoughts. She was the monster in the closet, quite literally a closeted secret of the Smith family. Nobody at school knew about her, and only close family members had any real concern and any real careful thoughts about her. I did hurt her once. I'll admit that. And I know that is why I probably feel so guilty and hate myself about it. She was screaming at night again, so I ran up the steps into the attic and broke her arm. It snapped so easily, and I screamed back, "Shut up," over and over again. Like I said before, she couldn't talk, but she could only manage a couple of words. Some were barely audible. However, whenever she saw me, she would always say the word sunflower in this gargled, croaking, and blasphemous voice. It was terrifying. The way she would look at me when it was my turn to feed her in the evening was of pure evil. I knew she was jealous of me, my normality, ease of life, friends, school, and the ability to go to the bathroom. Things she never had, things she could never do. I hated her because she was a burden, and she hated me because I was normal. On many nights I would wake and hear her screaming the word sunflower over and over again in some choked and desperate tone. My parents would always ignore her or pretend they couldn't hear her screaming because they were too far away from the attic to be bothered to attend. However, she would persist. Sunflower, 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 over and over. I could picture her in a state of constant pain, her gnarled, brittle bones, her body rooted to the mattress she lived on, her twisted and knotted spine, her long, matted and greasy hair, and screaming that insistent word, sunflower, sunflower, sunflower. Then one day she died. It was instant, quick and swift. I thought I would have been happy and joyed at the prospect of being freed from such ungodly burdens, but no, it was documented as an undiagnosed form of pneumonia. She was buried the following week, and an autopsy was completed. All scars and bruises were written off as self-harm. I have no idea where they came from. She was buried as quickly as she died, and her headstone read, "Here lies Bethany Smith, loving daughter, taken too soon. Rest in peace, July the 2nd, 2009. She was still alive to me, and she still infested my dreams, and my time at school was made miserable and filled to the brim with guilt. I couldn't bear it. However, the news soon after was rather disturbing to me and my family as we sat and enjoyed a peaceful Sunday roast with no screaming coming from the attic. It was a late and immediate phone call from Unsworth and Sons funeral directors, the local and only cemetery owners. My father sat in the main hall of our house by the window and nodded quietly, said yes in response, and then gently laid the phone down in its holster. "She's gone," my father said to my baffled and confused mother. "What do you mean, honey? Who's gone?" My mother approached my father to coax an answer from him. He simply turned around and said, "They said it was grave robbers. Someone has taken Bethany's body last night, and they are coming to a full investigation with the police. They will update us soon, and any new details will be given to us whenever they come across any." I remember he went off into the dining hall after that, and carried on eating as if nothing had happened. As a matter of fact, we spent the rest of the evening disregarding the phone call altogether. To me, she was still alive. I can still hear her rapping on the window and the words sunflower, 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 over and over again. We didn't receive any news or updates about Bethany. Her body was simply never recovered. I stood at the tram stop with my small plastic bag, carrying my rubbish. I was alone again, and I was tired, but that's when I heard it. Sunflower, 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 coming from the park across the street. Piccadilly Gardens was dimly lit with old and battered Victorian lampposts with an orange orb mounted upon a black mechanical trunk, and that made for poor lighting from where I was standing. There was a rustling from the bushes behind the wrought-iron fencing which surrounded the gardens, and I tried to blow it off as some homeless person high on coke, or a cat with some deranged vocal cords. The rustling grew violent, and there was a laboured breathing emanating from the harsh black branches, and there it was again. Sunflower, sunflower, sunflower. I turned and looked away, down the road, left and right, and hoped there would be the 11:35 tram pulling its way towards the tram stop. Nothing. Sunflower, sunflower, sunflower. I turned once more and noticed in the dim orange glow of the black, soldier-like lamppost a gnarled figure, barely standing, spine twisted and a sinister grin. Its matted hair was dishevelled and frizzy, causing a grey halo around its large and heavy head. It took one step forward out of the light of the lamppost towards me, with its branch-like arms outstretched and yearning towards me. I dropped my bag and ran across the street, nearly getting hit by a car. I ran as far and as fast as I could, away from the gardens, and hailed a taxi when I felt comfortable to do so. I was on edge the whole night and stayed awake in my flat looking out of the window, and down onto the car park below at the streetlight looking for that thing. I thought I saw it, and I knew I was tired, so I probably imagined it at that point. It stood under the streetlight, bent over and hunched, managing some blasphemous attempt at waving. I stayed awake until sun rose over the mountains on the horizon. I didn't feel safe in Manchester anymore. After that night, I called my parents and I left the following morning out on the earliest train. I swear I saw that thing again. It was sitting in the mouth of the tunnel when the train was pulling out of the station, a wry and malicious grin on its face which was covered with dirt and leaves. I still see it sometimes, when I'm walking alone at night, following me like a baying dog. But every time I do see it, it's always the same words coming from its dry and rotten mouth. Sunflower, sunflower, sunflower. Statement ends. After recent investigation into Miss Smith's case, the body of the late Bethany Smith has not been recovered. The local town in Surrey of did house the Smith family up until January the 3rd of 2020. Local housing committees suggest they sold their small manor house for a sum of $1,250,000. A recent local census issued by the Council of also suggests that the house has had 2 more owners after the Smith family moved out. All have sold the house and moved out of Surrey within the first 6 months of moving in. The property is now valued at $300,000. Delilah's whereabouts were recently confirmed at Edinburgh's Psychiatric Unit for self-harm, extreme insomnia, PTSD and schizophrenia. After interviewing Dr. she will remain there for the foreseeable future as she is seen as a threat to herself and her surroundings. There are also strong claims of delirium and severe hallucinations. A small team of EIB field agents have remained to study Delilah at the psychiatric unit. Case number 32716, loop 22, closed. End recording.